So I'll switch up the music here. So yeah, hello, welcome back. Yeah, you might need to close and reopen, everyone. I don't know why it died. It did, and now it's back. The true Eldritch horror, right? Oh my gosh. So thank you for sticking around while I tried to figure out what was going on. For the break, I went up and I took a little bit of a walk. I have something more substantive than water. Oh, okay. Well, so I don't know. Now, coffee uses actual OBS, and I don't think uses slobs. So the Streamlabs version. So it could be Twitch, I guess, maybe on Twitch's end. That's about receiving signals. But I know my internet service provider is it's fine. And I had the signal. I was able to type in chat. Well, anyway, it is what it is. You know what? Let's ham it up. Let's play into it. Clearly, there's an entity. There is something among us that doesn't want these cosmic truths to get out. It was. So I had slobs just crash on me coffee. So what are we gonna do, everyone? We're gonna take a look at this piece of art. This piece of art is not only a good eye catch, but this can help explain cosmic horror. You might say, oh, okay, well, I get it. It's a monster with tentacles. I see those all the time, especially in the anime collection I have. That might very well be, but a monster with tentacles itself does not horror make. So why is it that I say this piece of art can invoke a sanity check? You know, we'll lean into what our first half of the broadcast was, which were the basic rules. This is how you do a thing. This is how you pew a firearm. This is how you try and drive in a controlled state. And in fact, for this part, I don't know if Ivlon is still here. If Coffee Cat's hanging out, maybe I can pick on Coffee Cat a little bit, because I have Roll20 brought up. And maybe we can turn Coffee's character into an animated corpse and do some practical applications of skills. So as we zoom out, you might, like, oh, what's this little critter? Okay, well, there's a star. Everything's kind of eerily lit from below. And what does all this mean? You know, that catches the eye. And then you say, that seems like it maybe it's a fisheye lens effect, but also it's not. It's a little confusing. And there's kind of a sense of scale. Kind of. But I don't really know how big this thing is. Is this the size of a bird? Or is this the size of a helicopter? In which case, you know what? This darn art. Let me just zoom out a little bit more. There, finally. Oh, we see the cultists. Now everything is making more sense, kind of. Okay, well, what about the monster? Oh. 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 Well, we presume to know what this looks like and what this does. But we don't and can't really know. And we never will. What does this thing actually continue up further? Is this a merciful cutoff point of the art? so that we just go, look, all our brains can take is a cluster of eyes and some tentacles coming down. You don't want to know what's above that cutoff line. But that kind of maddening effect of your brain trying to make sense of what is going on up here. It needs to know. It needs to figure it out. It's who we are and what we do and how we act. And you go, oh, is this a perspective thing? Is this a fisheye? Is this like a fisheye lens? Maybe for scale, we have the cultists, presuming that the cultists aren't giants. And in that case, well, maybe the grass is tall, but it kind of bends in a little weirdly. Is this thing up here the same size as a human? And you think and you wonder, and you look at the patterns in the rocks, and you look for similarities and differences, and you question what's happening. But anyway, what are we talking about? Ah yes, Chapter 4, Skills. Hi, Goblin of Gygaxanor. An elephant with too many trunks. Now, in the basic rules, we went over the percentile system. You want to do something? Roll at or under your skill in it. And, sometimes if something's a little bit more difficult, it might be a hard check or whatever. The book now has a little bit more in that. There is much that I could reiterate. I'm not going to. You got the gist in the first part, and if you didn't, you'll get it going along with our refinement of the ideas in an expansion. The skill points in any particular skill. Do you need to memorize these thresholds? Not necessarily, but it gives you an idea of where things are at. And maybe it even gives you an idea if you were to quantify yourself along the lines of the character sheet in Call of Cthulhu. I wonder if you all out there could make yourself as an investigator. I wonder what your character sheets would look like. Well, anyway, so there's notes about, drive auto would not be suitable for Victorian London, but it could be drive carriage instead. Some things are modern because there's Cthulhu in the Atomic Age. There is also a by Gaslight. There's a Dark Ages Cthulhu as well. If you want to go, even back further. And some, this is the hemming and hawing between the keeper and the investigator. Equally, some skills would be affected by location. A Japanese investigator might have a law skill of 75% in Japan. However, if the same investigator were tested on Spanish law, then the keeper would probably increase the skill level difficulty of the role. So that would probably be a hard test. There are still some basic applications, things that you can get the gist of, but you don't have the solid 75. So things to consider. Certain skills embody a wide range of knowledge, such as arts and crafts, fighting, firearms, and science, allowing investigators to specialize in narrower avenues of learning. Some things are uncommon. Again, this is talk to your keeper about. If the keeper wishes to include these extra skills in the game, or a player wishes to take one, it should be made clear. Specializations. Some broad skills are broken into specializations. That was brought up in the rules, the quick start, by brawling, right? Fighting brawl, or fighting spear. Thus, a player may spend points on one or another, but not simply fighting. You get to specialize, and you're better at something. In the case of art and craft, science, and survival, these skills encompass a wide diversity of specializations. Keeper must decide on the applicability of a particular specialization to the situation at hand. And you can find some similar concepts. I don't know if you heard that on the microphone, but apparently someone needed to have a really loud car go by at a very early hour through a residential neighborhood. So that was a thing. Maybe a motorcycle, but I don't know. Maybe it was a car that had its something with its muffler, or I don't know. Anyway, you get some specializations like this also in Vampire the Masquerade, as an example. All right, Coffee. I'll pick on you in your sleep. Be well. So examples here. Everything is a nice step by step. I'm touching on the topics, but ultimately, I want you to get the book. Go to your friendly local game store, pick it up on the shelf, pick it up off their shelf, and if it's not there, ask them to order it in for you. Not only would they love the business, especially if they've earned it from you, but for the things that I'm touching upon to get the ideas going, you can carry those through the written out examples. I didn't mind reading because there wasn't a lot in the quick start rules. Some paragraphs, and it broke things down pretty well. But when it comes to a broader application or some of the nuance, I'm going to bring it up, say that it's here, and we'll carry on, but I'm not going to read the examples. Now, if you do have questions, please ask them in chat. I'll go and specifically address them. But I'm not here to just be an auto reader for the rule book here. And you can read about some specializations, some other skills, what the skills might encompass normally. For example, I made a determination about law in the Tuesday game, that it would help with the particular situation Ivalon's character was hoping to address with a sheriff's deputy who is present at the Halloween party in the front lawn of the insane asylum. Oh, I don't know. Hopefully things are still playing. And we did talk about pushing skills and what that means. It's kind of a double or nothing. This will get a little bit more into it. But something that wasn't necessarily brought up before was combined skill rolls. In some situations, a keeper may ask for a roll against more than one skill. Only one dice roll is made. The result is then compared with each of the skills named. The keeper will specify whether a success is required for both skills, or if only one of the skills needs to be successful. And by the way, for the investigator that was created in the previous chapter 3, that investigator, Harvey, is being taken through these examples brought up in the rules. So, a skill list of things to consider. I'm not going into every single one. You can use your imagination on what the drive skill does. There are some, uncommon things. There are some, there are suggestions if there's an opposing skill to be made against it in a situation. You can read all of these interactions. You do not have to memorize them. You don't even have to use them if you think that there's something else that is more appropriate. But this is great for expanding on the ideas that were brought up. Artillery, charm, climb. I like how credit rating, which is a measure of the wealth of your character, has this as this symbol right here. So I am skipping ahead here. If you want to read about all of the different specializations and skills, I'd urge you to do so. Your investigator will really only access a handful of these, so please don't think you have to memorize every single skill. Here we go. More beautiful art that it captures the interest and it captures the dread that a situation like this might bring up. There's certainly a story of things that are going on here. Hi, Diadems. Good to see you. Welcome. A little bit more into when to roll dice. Some games want you to ROLL play. This game is much more about storytelling and would rather you ROLE play more often, especially when you're trying to unravel an investigation, which is certainly leading to something. There is definitely conflict on the horizon. The threat of losing a part of yourself, physically and or mentally, it's there. There's a lot of very good advice into when to roll dice. You know, make sure it's something dramatic or that there is a consequence to it. It'll go into determining the difficulty level. We touched upon that briefly. You know, here Harvey wants to get into the library. You know, can he do it? Remember, these boxes are taking you step by step with an example, a narrated example of play that is playing out here. Pardon. Success is success, right? But failure. The player stated a goal and has failed to achieve it, but exactly how the player's investigator has failed is entirely up to the keeper, though of course the players may throw in suggestions. Initial failure at a skill roll should not usually inflict damage or sanity loss, but this depends on the circumstances. A failed roll could represent failure to act rather than a failed attempt. Worse things may happen if the player chooses to push the roll and fails a second time. This gets a little bit more into the minutia of pushing the roll. It is a second chance after the fact, double or nothing. But it is up to the player to narrate how this is going to be happening. The keeper can, but this book is nice in that it really wants to get the players involved in the story as well and give them that agency and that encouragement to narrate much on their own to the keeper to mitigate to or to, you know, whatever, to adjudicate. And here's some sample ideas. What could be a consequence of that double or nothing if you're trying to look into something in particular? Jedi Prime Alex, it's good to see you again, my friend. Welcome. This also stresses foreshadowing failure. Before rolling the dice for a pushed roll, the consequence of failure may be foreshadowed by the keeper. To foreshadow, the keeper says, "if you fail," followed by as much detail as he or she desires. The keeper should highlight things that would be apparent to the investigator, though perhaps unconsidered by the player. Things that the investigator would not be aware of might only be hinted at the keeper's discretion. Players are welcome to offer their own suggestions for consequences, especially when they come up with scarier ones. That's the "are you sure?" Or in Vampire the Masquerade terms, that's the "win at a cost." More on pushing your rolls. You get to succeed. You get or what happens on a failure, and the examples. This was something that. Here we go. This was something that hadn't been brought up either. More than one player rolling dice for a skill roll. In some circumstances, 2 or more... By the way, if you're reading in the book along with us, we're on page 86, and please do join us. Uh-oh. We're being raided and let in by a ghost of all things, too. Let's get a shout out to Feth the Exorcist. Well, you know what? Feth, you coming in with Awe the Store Ghost has a kind of an interesting irony to it. Welcome to you. Welcome to the Thorn Eater as well, in with your raid. You know what? I have an emote that is kind of close to that. Boom. You all are welcome here. And Feth, what was going on? What was going on in your Call of Cthulhu game? We are going over the rules. We're having a basic introduction to the tabletop role-playing game. We went through the basics, and now we're exploring the rules for the in-between things and the considerations after we had the fundamentals down. So examples on more than one person who are getting in on a dice roll: researching a single book, picking a lock, delivering first aid. 2 people may assist each other, both rolling their first aid skill. A success is granted if either of them succeeds. 1 person attempts to pick the lock, rolling their locksmith skill. 1 person at a time may read the book. Carrying a body, the keeper should use the size characteristic of the body to set a difficulty level. Up to 4 people, each taking 1 limb, could assist one another in carrying a body, in which case a roll would only be required if the body were exceptionally heavy. So here are some examples, guidelines, if you will, in the accent of Captain Barbosa. You can certainly play with rules as written here, but remember, what is more important is the story at your table. Oh, you're setting up to have a D&D and Call of Cthulhu crossover. Ooh. Now, if this is going to spoil things for your players or your audience, don't delve too much into it. But if you're willing to give us a little peek behind the curtain, I would love to hear about the storyline, how you're going to do that, or the mechanics of intertwining the 2 ideas, if you're at liberty. The examples above are guidelines. For tasks in which the number of participants is limited, further attempts may be made by their investigators. And so sometimes having more people might not allow you to do it at all, and other times maybe everyone rolls and you keep the highest, you keep the average, or the lowest person is the one who endangers everyone else. There are fumbles and criticals. I went too far, everyone. Very high or very low dice rolls are unusual and signify good or bad fortune for the players. The impact of fumbles should take effect immediately and may not be negated through pushing the roll. A roll of 1 means that something beneficial occurs beyond simply achieving the goal. The nature of the good fortune is at the keeper's discretion, although the players may make suggestions. In combat, for example, a critical success means that the attacker has hit a vulnerable spot and causes maximum damage. A 96 to 100 is a fumble. A fumble simply means that something really bad occurs, something worse than a straight failure. The nature of the misfortune or bad luck is at the keeper's discretion. If the dice roll required for success is 50 or over, and the dice read 100, a fumble has occurred. If the dice roll required for success is below 50, and the dice read 96 through 100, a fumble has occurred. So, the clumsiness it extends if you're not after a certain professionalism, right? Luck. Luck rolls may be called for by the keeper when circumstances external to any investigator are in question, and also in determining the fickle hand of fate. I can explain quite a bit, but first I gotta take care... Oh, yep, after session. Feth, absolutely. Please, when you finish that, take care of your players and your table and everything else. Please come back, and I'm chatty. I love people who come in. By my profession, I'm a storyteller. I teach this stuff, and so please come back and let us know of the workings. If a skill or characteristic is applicable to a situation, then it should be used rather than luck. If the keeper calls for a group luck roll, the player whose investigator has the lowest luck score should make the roll. Feth, thank you very much. We draw closer to our Tiamat giveaway. And Thorn? Yes, please do, Thorn. And thanks to both of you for following as well. We're way less than 200 people away from me giving away. Oh, and Featherstride? A good mascot for that. When we hit 4,000 followers, I'm giving away a $400 pre-painted Gargantuan Tiamat to celebrate. So, I'm happy you brought your buddies in. Thorn, I'll try not to embarrass you in front of your friends, but please do come back, lurk, share your stories, hang out at the tables at this virtual friendly local game store, an extension of a real one, and thank you for adding more cultists to our amassed ritual, which will summon the goddess Tiamat herself, and I shall send her out to bless one of you. Hey, that's a venerable role, and I hope you lean into it and really enjoy it, Thorn. So here it's suggested the person... Good. Be that villain. Oh, the energy. The energy of it is amazing. Asks for the lowest roll. You'll also find an optional rule for spending luck points to alter dice rolls at the end of this chapter. And that was something that we were doing in the Lady in Red, our Tuesday Call of Cthulhu example game. There is a no roll as well to know something. So again, these are not complicated rules, but these are ways to take that basic idea of, well, here's the skill or here's the stat, the attribute, and this is how you can use it directly, and then some options. Or, all right, well, I guess I can think a little outside the box in that regard. Opposed roles, player versus player, and melee combat. There may be times, such as when two investigators are opposing one another, when you wish for both sides to roll dice to determine a victor. Opposed rolls are the standard for melee combat. Outside of combat, the keeper should avoid using opposed rolls between non-player characters and investigators. Both sides declare a mutually exclusive goal. One will win, the other will lose. Each side selects a skill or a characteristic to use. Not necessarily the same one, both of which must be approved by the keeper. Right? So it's keeping it PvP, kind of, but it's keeping it mutual. And everyone's going to still have fun with it because they're announcing this is what we're doing to butt heads. Remember, opposed skill rolls cannot be pushed. This is it. This is the do or die. And what happens? What happens? There's the example that's given. A skill roll can yield any of these results. This is more than in the beginner rules. It's not very complicated. It's just something to consider while you're playing along. Did you get an extreme success? Maybe something special happens. You get that cherry on top. Bonus dice and penalty dice primarily used for use with opposed dice rolls. Now, I was giving those out for circumstantial bonuses. So in that regard, I was playing with that as a guideline for opposed rolls. It didn't necessarily mess anything up. And what you do, it's sort of like in Dungeons and Dragons when you have advantage or disadvantage. You take another die that is your 10s and you roll it. And it'll replace the there we go. When to call for difficulty levels versus bonus or penalty dice. Because sometimes you say, you know what, it's just a hard check, instead of you roll with a penalty. In the majority of cases, only one person, usually the player, makes a skill roll. Any factors that provide... Sorry, there we go. That provide an advantage or disadvantage for the investigator should be factored into the difficulty level set by the keeper. Bonus dice and penalty dice may be awarded in conjunction with difficulty levels at the keeper's discretion, but doing so should be the exception rather than the rule. In the case of an opposed roll, wherein both sides are rolling in opposition, difficulty levels are never set. The level of success achieved by one side is in effect the level of difficulty that the other side must compete against. If there are factors that provide a distinct advantage or disadvantage, the keeper should grant bonus die or penalty die to that player. And there's a very good example here about these two gentlemen trying to hold up the rock longer than the other. Combined skill rolls. Some situations allow or demand the use of more than one skill. The keeper will specify whether a success is required for both skills, or if only one of the skills need be successful. Note the importance of using a single dice roll in the latter example. Harvey has only 10% skill in both mechanical repair and electrical repair. The chance of success when making one dice roll and comparing it to both skills simultaneously is 10%. If two separate rolls were made, first against mechanical repair and then against electrical repair, the chance of succeeding in both would be 1%. The keeper must decide whether a situation calls for sequential skill rolls or a combined skill roll. So think about the order. Think about a bonus or even just being able to do something at all. And does it have to surpass both thresholds? Charm, fast talk, intimidate, and persuade skills and their difficulty levels. This was something that in the introductions for charming, I just kept to a roll. I was interpreting the results there. In the case of the rule book here, an investigator may have a charm skill of 75 plus, but this does not mean that he or she can charm anyone and everyone 75% of the time. The difficulty level is based on the opposing factor. In this case, the matching social skill, either charm, fast talk, intimidate, or persuade, or psychology skill. To realize that someone's trying to, butter you up. Whichever is higher. Thus, if the opposing skill is 50% or higher, a hard success is required. If the opposing skill is 90% or higher, an extreme success is required. For the vast majority of non-player characters, these skills will be below 50%. That's kind of what was being leaned into. And so the difficulty level will be regular, and the player only needs a regular success. They didn't really talk to anyone who had an especially keen mind. The one time that it was a blowout. So there was no like hemming and hawing over the difficulty there. Now, rewards of experience in something like this. This is more for the building of the characters, and we can cover leveling up in effect in next week's workshop series when we address building characters. but that is based on using skills and using them successfully, because you get a chance to increase that skill if you successfully used it in the course of that session. Background stuff. How do you take care of your credit rating, which is your income? A lot of this is going to be character stuff that we can get into, not necessarily rules. But there are these optional rules on spending luck. After the player has made a skill roll, luck points may be spent to alter the result. The player can use luck points to alter a roll on a 1-for-1 basis. The points spent are deducted from the investigator's luck score, which will reduce the chances of passing a future luck roll. Luck points may not be spent on luck rolls, damage rolls, sanity rolls, or rolls to determine the amount of sanity points lost. A player may spend any amount of luck points, up to their current luck value, on a roll. A player may only spend luck to alter one of their own dice rolls. When a skill roll is failed, the player has the option to push the roll or to spend luck. Luck points may not be spent to alter the result of a pushed roll. Criticals, fumbles, and firearm malfunctions always apply and cannot be bought off with luck points. Also, no skill improvement check is earned if luck points were used to alter the dice roll, because you didn't do it. What did you learn? It was luck that did it for you. In play, an investigator's luck will fall through spends and rise through recovery. After each session of play, each player may make an improvement check with their luck. This is rolled in the same way for a skill improvement. The player rolls 1d100, and if the roll is above their present luck score, they add 1d10 points to their luck score. If the roll is equal to or less than the investigator's present luck score, no points are recovered. An investigator's luck score will vary throughout play, but may not exceed 99. The luck starting value is not used again in the game. There are no resets, and the starting value can be exceeded in play. Oh, combat. Then, in spite of my days of fright and disgust, my morbid curiosity triumphed, and as the last of the monstrosities oozed up alone from that nether world of unknown nightmare, I drew my automatic pistol and shot it under cover of the thunder. Hi, Rep Artist. Welcome. Now, combat was briefly touched upon in the last segment. Let's find out a little. Ooh, well, what's going on here? Yeah. Despite their best efforts to avoid bloodshed, sometimes investigators are faced with situations where the outcome can only be decided by the fist or gun. Combat encompasses a range of skills and goals. Sometimes an investigator may wish to merely subdue an opponent without causing undue harm, while at other times the goal may be to kill or simply to flee. Combat has its own rules that focus on the action and help to determine who is doing what, when it is done, and the degree of success achieved. Rather than having a single roll decide the outcome of the fight, a series of rolls are made until there's a clear victor. So, you open with that declaration of intent. What is your character doing? Are you standing and delivering, or do you want to run and live to fight, or continue to run another day? We're going to begin with fisticuffs. Resolving a fighting attack made against a target that is dodging here. Well, actually, so I'm sorry. I should have zoomed out a bit more. This is melee, right? Both sides roll their percentile and compare the results with their own fighting skill, and that's if they're going to exchange blows, because the winner gets to deal the damage. And that could even be the defender, not the attacker. If the defender wins, the defender deals damage to the attacker. And then the tiebreakers and what happens there. If you're trying to dodge, then it is fighting skill and dodge skill that are in opposition with each other. And some suggestions and nuance here. It's tiebreakers. Determining damage. The amount of damage that an attack delivers is indicated on a table in the further. Note that the damage for unarmed human attacks is 1d3. It's punching and kicking. Extreme damage and impales. Greater damage is inflicted if the attacker gains an extreme level of success in their attack. This only occurs if the attack is made on a character's turn in the dex order, not when fighting back. Each character gets 1 moment in the spotlight each round, and this is their opportunity to make an outstanding attack. If the attacker achieves an extreme success with a non-impaling weapon, for example, blunt weapons such as a fist, kick, or club, then they have hit a weak spot and caused maximum damage. If the attacker achieves an extreme level of success with a penetrating weapon, such as a blade or bullet, then an impale has been inflicted. This means that the weapon or bullet chanced to strike a vital area, driving deeply through arteries or slashing critical tendons or muscles. Apply the increased damage as for an extreme success with a blunt weapon, and add a damage roll for the weapon, and that's in the future table. Anything can be picked up and used to hit or stab can be considered a melee weapon. If it is the kind of weapon that anyone would just pick up and use, a chair leg, kitchen knife, then use the fighting brawl skill. Such weapons belong to the basic weapons category and include simple clubs and knives. If the weapon is more cumbersome or complex and does not conform to the basic weapons category, a weapon specialization skill should be used. Weapons with similar characteristics and function are grouped together, and that's on the table. Again, these little like ticket looking areas here are walking us through the scenario. I may be reading the rules because I want to get the ideas out there. I want you to be able to listen, hear my voice talk about, here's a thing that can happen. But if you go back and say, how does that work again? You can always read the example, which is written, it's the rules written just in the form of a story being told to you. There are improvised weapons as well. When do you fight back or dodge, even as the monster if you're playing as the keeper? Remember, no pushing combat rolls and no luck. Well, at least on the damage rolls. There are some maneuvers as well. If a player describes a goal other than simply inflicting physical harm, such as disarming their opponent or knocking them over, then it can be resolved with a maneuver. This may include pushing someone out of the way, throwing the opponent to the floor, restraining someone in a headlock, disarming an opponent, and so on. Clearly, skill is an important factor in performing a successful fighting maneuver, but size and strength also have an effect. A small, skillful fighter might unbalance or disarm a larger opponent, but there are limits. No human is ever going to be able to wrestle a huge monster, such as a dark young, to the ground, whatever their skill. Conveniently, size and strength are already factored into each character's build, and thus, by comparing these, we may gauge the relative might of the opponents. To determine the relative capacity of the two opponents and whether the character performing the maneuver takes penalty dice. Remember, bonus or penalty is an extra 10s d10 to throw in there. Simply compare the build of the two combatants. If the character performing the maneuver has a smaller build than their opponent, then he or she takes a penalty die for each point of difference. And so that's stats on the character sheet, and we haven't looked at the character sheets yet, but it seems to make sense. Got it. Bigger, smaller. And you know what? If you want to argue for something else, you may say my character is shorter, but I do have a specialty in judo. And so actually being shorter is going to help me take people down. And so you talk to your keeper nods sagely and says, yes, that makes sense. So while other people, it might cause a penalty die, I will actually just let you roll normally, or even give you a bonus for some reason. So suggestions for when characters perform a maneuver, and there are disparities between the characters that are not just dealing damage, but trying to disarm, trying to bring down. Then you make your attack roll. A maneuver is treated the same way as a regular fighting attack. Most maneuvers will use the brawling skill, though some may be performed using another specialization. For example, the fighting sword skill might be used to disarm a person. The keeper must rule according to the situation. The opponent should choose to either dodge or fight back, as they would when attacked normally. And this is very good here. Fighting maneuvers require a definite goal. Make sure you are announcing your intention so that we can read the bones that are cast and the story continues on with any sort of dramatic flair that may be necessary for it. So, a very easy to read list of various maneuvers and notes on them. A successful maneuver allows the character to achieve one goal, such as, and here are some such ases. I don't need to read the entire list, it's here, and I want you to support your friendly local game store. Go out and pick up the Keeper's Handbook. That is like there is an Investigator's Handbook too. That has a lot of extra options. But the core book, if you want to understand the game and even build a character, is the Keeper's Handbook. Bloop. Support your FLGS, everyone. And if you don't have one, I know a guy. I'll hook you up. Just talk to me. We'll get you playing Call of Cthulhu. If you're going to surprise, something must happen to start a combat. Someone must strike the first blow. Opponents may square up to each other like two boxers in the ring, knowing they are engaged in a fight even before the first punch is thrown. If this is the case, the keeper should start a combat round. Alternatively, and remember the rounds go in order of who has the highest dex. Alternatively, the attack may be a complete surprise. A sudden knee to the groin or punch to the jaw, for example. When someone states that they are making a sudden, unexpected attack, they should have the opportunities to surprise their opponent. If the keeper were to automatically switch to combat rounds, the person who declared the first attack may end up acting last in the dex order, which would make no narrative sense. Of course, if the target has their wits about them, they may see the attack coming. The keeper may allow a skill roll to determine if the target anticipates the attack, using either listen or spot hidden to hear or see it coming, or psychology to perceive the attacker's intent. Again, these lists are talk it out, know your skills, pitch, right? Be your own character's best advocate for what is happening at the table. Lean into it, and your character isn't just being told a story, but is living, breathing, and fighting in this story too. When a character is outnumbered by the opposition, the character, by the way, we're on 108 now if you're following along at home. Once a character has either fought back or dodged in the present combat round, all subsequent melee attacks on them are made with one bonus die. This does not apply to attacks made using firearms, because you've like left yourself exposed, right? You've left yourself opened up. Thus, a ghoul with 3 attacks can fight back 3 times before its attackers gain a bonus die. Note that some mythos entities can never be outnumbered by investigators. And by the way, in Call of Cthulhu, remember, Cthulhu isn't always present, nor any of the other named beings, Hastur or otherwise. They don't always have to be, and you don't have to read the fiction books and the pulp magazine short stories and etc. to learn and enjoy running a game of Call of Cthulhu. Ranged missile attacks, such as bows, are treated like firearms. Thrown weapons may be opposed with the dodge skill in the same way as fighting attacks. And that's simply because, they would travel kind of slower than an arrow or a bullet would. Character may not choose the option of fighting back against a ranged missile or thrown weapon attack unless he or she is within 1/5 of their dex in feet near the attacker. That way you can, kind of rush in. Half the attacker's damage bonus is applied to thrown and missile weapons that rely on the user's strength. This applies to bows and slings, but not to crossbows. It's a machine doing it, right? To resolve a ranged or thrown attack, the keeper should set a difficulty level as for a firearm attack. Did I miss firearms? Not yet. I think it's ahead. Sorry. A character can use their action to flee melee combat on their turn in the order of combat, providing they have an escape route and are not physically restrained. No attacks of opportunity unless for some reason it is narratively and somehow like the best choice. In many instances, running away from a fight is a way to go. Either to regroup and to get on better, in a better situation, to buy yourself some time to set up, or sometimes you just can't take on what is lumbering down that dark, wet hallway. Armor. This wasn't brought up in the quick start rules. Armor reduces damage received, whether it is the natural armor of some monsters, body armor worn by a character, or the natural defense of an obstacle between the attacker and target. Deduct the number of armor points from damage inflicted by attacks passing through the armor. Note that armor will not reduce damage from magical attacks, poison, drowning, etc. So here we go. Here's our flowchart. Establish the order of attack. Rank in dex order. Highest goes first. Readied firearms go at dex plus 50. Because it's all you have to do is go bip, and that bip, it doesn't take a lot of time to do. Is it a surprise attack? Well, there you go. Otherwise, resolve in dex order. Initiate attack, flee, or maneuver. Defender chooses to dodge, fight back, or perform maneuver. Attacker and defender make opposed rolls. Here is the results of either of the three. And remember, combat rolls cannot be pushed. There's the note about being outnumbered. Once a character is dodged or fought back in a round, all subsequent attacks on them receive a bonus die, because their attention's on the one target and not to the weapon coming in from the side. If it's a maneuver, compare builds. If the initiator is smaller, it's 1 penalty die for each point difference. If the difference is 3+, the maneuver is impossible. So you may want to disarm this opponent. But if this opponent has 6 arms and is 3 times your size and is holding a special sword made for people who have 4 hands to put on the blade, as much as you want to do something, there's enough differences between size and other circumstances, it's just not going to be possible. And then, was anything an extreme level of success? Well, there you go. I hope this doesn't look too confusing. It is just literally the flowchart of what to check through. And on this first blush, if you go, I don't know, there's so many words, there's a lot to memorize. Stop it. Don't memorize it. Print this out if you have to. It's fine to do. It's okay to print this out and to follow the flowchart. And to remember that these are strong suggestions, but your table is your own. And you should do what is right for the situation, regardless of the mechanics that are presented to you in the book. And wouldn't you know, here is a narrated example of everything that we just went through. So again, if you're the type of person who learns, or not by listening to the description, the reading of the rules, your eyes glaze back, you go, ugh. But you find it compelling to read the rules through the narrative, through action being presented. Well, here you go. It is all written out for you in these boxes. See, here's a whole big scene. There's art for it and everything. Armor examples that would, deplete the damage coming in. Heavy leather jacket, World War I helmet, a Kevlar vest if you're playing in, in times where there's like military body armor and bulletproof glass and such. And if you need to increase or decrease it for some reason, or you like the idea of armor ablation from Cyberpunk Red, include that. It is true that I have sent 6 bullets through the head of my best friend, and yet I hope to show by this statement that I am not his murderer. To resolve a firearms attack, make a 1d100 roll and compare the result with the attacker's firearms skill. That's your basic roll, right? The firearms roll is not opposed. The difficulty level is determined by the range, with various other factors granting either penalty or bonus dice. A failure never deals damage. It takes less time to pull a trigger than to swing a club or sword. Therefore, readied firearms. So that's if your investigator goes, I got a bad feeling about this before combat starts and you have your gun ready. That's why you get that plus 50 in order. The difficulty level of a firearms skill roll is always set according to the range. That's something that's kind of shared in common with Cyberpunk as well. Each doubling of range above the weapon's listed base range on the weapons chart increases the difficulty by 1 step. So regular, hard, extreme. Regular roll, you have to roll under half. You have to roll under 1/5. Any further modifiers use bonus or penalty dice. At very long range, when only an extreme success will hit the target, an impale only occurs when with a critical hit. Once the difficulty level of a firearms attack has been set, all other factors that lend a distinct advantage or disadvantage are taken into account. Some options follow, but others may occur to you during play. Modifiers grant either a bonus die or a penalty die. Diving for cover. The target is aware of being fired upon and may react by diving for cover. This may mean jumping behind a physical barrier, throwing oneself to the floor, or ducking and diving at speed in an attempt to present a more difficult target. Diving for cover requires a dodge roll. If this is successful, the target presents a more difficult target and the attacker gets 1 penalty die. Diving for cover is a desperate response to a desperate situation. A character that opts to dive for cover forfeits their next attack, regardless of whether they were successful or not. Remember, you get to do one thing on your turn. So, getting up or something would be that thing. If they have already used their attack this round, they forfeit their attack on the following round. The only option available to a character that has dived for cover until their next attack is to dodge further attacks. If an individual with multiple attacks dives for cover, they forfeit all of their attacks, not just a single attack. Cover and concealment grants a penalty die. Point blank range is a bonus die. Aiming is a bonus die. Fast moving targets is a penalty. Target size could be a bonus or penalty. So these are things you can do a little bit of hemming and hawing. You can keep this page printed out for quick reference. If you need to. But these are things to bring up when calculating what happens when I do draw that pistol, or I have that Tommy gun. If using automatic fire, an attacker can make 1 pull of the trigger in 1 combat round. The automatic weapon will then continue firing until the trigger is released, or the ammunition is expended, called full auto. Some weapons are limited to fire a burst rather than full auto, while others may be switched to fire semi-automatic and or burst or full auto. The player declares a number of rounds to be fired. I'm sorry, I lost. There we go. Which may be any number up to the capacity of the gun before rolling the dice. Due to the recoil of automatic weapons, it is very hard to place a high number of rounds in a single target. To simulate this, the number of bullets fired is divided into a series of volleys, with an attack roll made for each volley. A volley is a number of bullets up to or equal to the firer's submachine gun or machine gun skill divided by 10 and rounded down. Simply read that. If you're like, oh my god, math. You don't have to use automatic weapons. Or again, if you take this step by step, if your this is saying your volley, if you have a machine gun skill of 50, you divide that by 10, your volley is 5 bullets. Regardless of skill, a full auto volley is never fewer than 3. For example, a character with firearms 47% would fire 4 bullets in a volley. A character can fire full auto, multiple volleys, in a single round until their ammunition runs out, although the chances of hitting reduce after the first volley has been fired. For burst fire, semi-automatic, this is completely up to you and your character. If you like living in simpler times with a revolver and you want to play Old West Call of Cthulhu, by the way, there's a setting for that. And as well as, remember, Gaslight Victorian Ages, Atomic Age, if you want something even further in the future. The classic setting is 1920s, but you don't have to play there. You can play modern day or futuristic Call of Cthulhu if you'd like. Hi, Hunter. So depending on your acquisition or your skill with this weapon at your character creation, or you learn along the way, yes, there are a lot of notes. Do you have to memorize them all? No. No more than you, if you play a barbarian in Dungeons and Dragons and you have a favorite sledgehammer that is your weapon, a maul, or maybe a warhammer, it depends. Let's call it a maul. And you say, this is my weapon for the entire 3 years we're playing this game. Do you have to memorize every other weapon or spell in the player's handbook? Absolutely not. Keep your maul in mind and be aware there's spells and other weapons, but you don't have to memorize them. So don't put that pressure on yourself when your eyes start going back like, oh, how do I fire semi-automatic? Do I have to memorize this to play Call of Cthulhu? Oh, yeah. Here they go again, narrating it out in a compelling way. Harvey versus a monster, even. I like the flapper with the machine gun here. So it gets into the volleys, the malfunctions. Firearms are prone to jamming or misfiring, especially given the technology level you visit, too, in your game. With any attack roll, result equal to or higher than the firing weapon's malfunction number. The shooter does not merely miss, his or her weapon does not fire. If the weapon is a revolver, break-open gun, or bolt-action rifle, the problem is merely a dud round. If the weapon is lever action, the malfunction is a jam. Fixing a jam takes 1d6 combat rounds, plus a successful mechanical repair roll or firearm skill roll. The user can keep trying once per round until succeeding. If the roll is also a fumble, the keeper may choose whether the gun malfunctions or some other outcome occurs, such as hitting an ally or the wielder injuring themselves in some way. Ah, yes, the consequences of fighting. Wounds and healing. Descriptions of injuries should be appropriate to the type and degree of damage received. Thus, the investigator is not merely shot, but shot in one arm or the other. Likewise, a fall might mean the investigator has sprained an ankle, or now has a lump on the back of her skull, as well as hit point loss. Keepers should describe the effect of the damage and try to avoid simply saying, you lost 3 hit points. The number of hit points of damage inflicted by an attack can be used to differentiate between regular damage and major wounds. Someone beaten unconscious by punches, each doing a small amount of damage, may awaken the next day battered and bruised, but able to act. However, someone who takes the same total amount of harm in a single attack, such as a gunshot, might be out of action for a week or more before the slow healing process even begins. Remember, unless you're somehow getting magic or something happening in this game, you heal as you do. in real life. You don't get a cleric to say, bullet be gone, and then that wound is gone. However, someone takes... Okay, I'm sorry, there was that. A punch is likely to result in regular damage, whereas a gunshot is more likely to inflict a major wound. If the damage from a single attack is less than half the character's maximum hit points, it is regular damage. Equal to or more than half the character's maximum hit points, it's a major wound. Right? It's at all at once. More than the character's maximum hit points, the result is death. You might be a big, strong, soldier, barrel-chested, you have armor and everything. But if you're shot with, an elephant gun, and that deals more than your character's maximum hit points, no amount of clapping is bringing you back from that. Regular damage is the result of any single attack that deals damage equal to or less than half the character's maximum hit points in a single blow. It has no significant effect on the character until current hit points are reduced to 0, when the character will become unconscious. The character cannot die as a result of regular damage. So that's how you can, kind of beat someone down, knock them out for a restrain, or to just leave them there and get out before they can retaliate. A major wound results when an attack delivers an amount of damage equal to or greater than half the character's maximum hit points in a single attack. A character that has received, and remember, this is talking about the maximum hit points. You may have, 10 hit points, but of that 10, you might be down to 3. But if an attack deals 1 point of damage, it's not a major wound, even though you're down to only 2 of your 10 remaining, because it's based on the maximum value, not your current hit points. So when you take a major wound, tick the major wound box on your character sheet. The character immediately falls prone. Make a successful con roll to avoid the character falling unconscious. And if current hit points fall to 0 while the major wound box is ticked, the character is dying. And what happens if you're at 0 hit points? Cumulative damage ceases to be tracked once current hit points have fallen to 0. Do not record negative hit points. On 0 hit points, the character is unconscious. Further damage is generally ignored, but any sincere attempt to kill an unconscious character should succeed. 0 hit points can indicate one of 3 conditions, akin to the triage model. If only regular damage has been taken, the character does not die and will heal in time. If the character has taken a major wound, the character will soon die unless first aid is administered. If an uninjured character takes a wound that is equal to their maximum hit points, this would be a major wound. If an amount of damage greater than the character's maximum hit points is taken in one attack, then death is inevitable. Rendering first aid is listed here. Using medicine, you can read about these and the involvement. If you want to strip a lot of this out too, you just turn it into a roll and you don't worry about it, you can play this game if you really want to and just say, look, like many other games, you have 10 hit points. I'm going to chip away at them, and when you have 0, we're done. You can modify it if you think this is too much, but remember, these have written out examples too. Harvey has 15 hit points. Damage of 8 or more will inflict a major wound. Harvey is attacked by a mad cultist, and over the course of the fight, takes 3 damage, then 8 damage. His current hit points are down to 4. The major wound knocks him to the floor. He is required to make a con roll for the major wound and does so successfully, remaining conscious. And here is the combat damage flowchart. Print it out if you have to. Or if everyone agrees to a simpler system, do that as well. But we start with a character taking damage from a single wound. Damage is less than half maximum hit points. In that case, regular damage. First aid can heal 1 point, medicine can heal 1d3. Damage is equal to or more than half maximum. A major wound. 1, you fall prone, then you make a con roll, and if failed, you're unconscious. Damage is more, well, proceed straight to death. don't let things like this confuse you or upset you, or you go, I spent $60 on this rule book and I gotta memorize all this. Did you have to memorize all this for Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or any other game that you've played before? Absolutely not. I should hope not, anyway. And if there's some of you out there that are watching and you've never played a role-playing game, yes, this is a rule book. And there are rules and guidelines and suggestions. You never have to memorize them. While in the heat of the moment, your investigator is engaged in fisticuffs with a cultist, you as the player or the keeper can always sit back and say, I thought I knew how this worked. Give me a moment. 122. Oh, yep. This is I should have printed out this page. 122. All right, so we did that. We go here. Yep, hit points fell to 0, so we got to go below the wavy line. Yep. All right. Well, you are temporarily stabilized with +1 hit point. But within the next hour here, someone needs to administer some medicine here. Otherwise, that adrenaline rush is happening. You can roll for initiative and not just use dex. There are optional rules at the end of these chapters, like with luck. And then here's the chart of other forms of damage. And remember, weapon stats and charts are in that page as well. So here's your set of guidelines. If you're hit by a car going 30, being 3 to 6 yards from an exploding hand grenade or a stick of dynamite, or even a strong poison, it's deadly. The average person has a 50% chance of dying. Notes on spending luck. Avoiding nothing happening when both sides fail their fighting roll. Because if you just sit there and you're whiffing, it might cause a laugh at first, but then people just start going, I get it, like this is a fist fight, but can something happen, please? Well, here's a tiebreaker consideration. How can you still dish it out? Or do you just turn it into whoever's closer without going over, like Price is Right? How do you go for a knockout blow? All that is here. Different types of, how to, pardon. How to account for shotgun blasts or hit locations. How do you put down suppressing fire? In this rules discussion, I'm not here to go over every single little bit. It's here, and again, I want you to get the book and I want you to read it in the case-by-case basis. Or maybe you really like guns and this chapter is for you. How do you fight and use poisons? And here's some sample poisons to use in your game. So there's a lot here, and we can continue this conversation. We can go back and revisit it, and I was going to go into Roll20 and also showcase how some of this stuff works out, but I wanted to go over these more expanded rules. And it looks like maybe tomorrow we can get into conducting a chase, how to establish it and conduct it, and then we can go through a similar narration, like what we see here with Harvey, who is encountering things in these kind of beige or manila covered asides about spending luck, and we can roll that stuff live through Roll20 about hiding and shooting different guns. I think that's going to be what's going to work best there. Yeah, because we're also going to get into sanity and what happens. So chases, sanity. We'll finish up the expanded rules look, and then we can start. Applying it with some sample rolls in Roll20 live here in front of you all. Oh, and magic too. Ooh, magic too. Yep, we have a lot to look forward to then.